We got a good one today. We're talking receivers, receiver superlatives, over-unders. Which transfer is going to make the biggest impact? We're going to grade the position for the 2024 season and for the future on today's Locked On Badgers with a great guest. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, Badger fans. Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your daily Badgers show. Thank you for making this one of your first listens every day. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for helping us build this community. We're going to bring Coach Anderson right on because whenever he's on, we get a little smarter, which I super appreciate. And we're talking receivers today. Go check out Coach Anderson and his work over the Dairy Raid. He's also breaking down the positions. And I'm excited to get into this one. I think this, along with linebacker, offensive line, are some of the most interesting positions on this team this year with the newcomers, the youth, how they're going to be used. I'm going to start with the depth chart, as I always do. Again, go check out Coach Anderson's work. He visually writes out his depth charts. In the senior class, we got Bryson Green. Junior, we got Joseph Griffin, the new transfer, Tyrell Henry, Will Pauling, CJ Williams, Vinny Anthony, a loaded junior group here. In the sophomore room, we got Quincy Burroughs and Chris Brooks Jr., redshirt freshman, that guy, Trech, Kekahuna, that everyone's excited about, and the true freshman coming in, Kion Barry Johnson. All right, so that's the depth chart. Coach, I'm going to just start here. What's the biggest storyline for you with the receiver group coming out of spring?
Well, as of yesterday or 2 days ago, it's Joseph Griffin Jr. joining the room. He fills a definite need. Like I said in my breakdown this morning, we don't have a receiver of his build type really on the roster. Big body, 6'3", over 200 pounds, and he fits the system. And he's that, in the true definition of the sense, a boundary receiver. Short side of the field, big body, going to get the tough yards on hitches, slants, crossing routes, curls, etc. And that's something we were missing last year. We didn't really have any physicality in the receiver room. And so bringing him in late definitely shows that they knew they had a need and they had an opportunity to fill it with a system fit. And so that right there is a very big sign that of the direction that they want to go. I think they were happy with Vinny Anthony and Quincy Burroughs on the left side, opposite of Bryson Green, but they just needed that different body type. And so I think it's a right pickup for what they need right now.
Well, to your point, Vinny Anthony and Quincy Burroughs are different types of guys. They're more vertical guys, more vertical speed, but they're not as tall. They don't have the catch radius. They're not quite as physical. Like there's clips that Griffin, really getting his body in on that slant, positioning himself between the defender, the ball. Like he's more physical. He has that ability that I don't think Vinny or Burroughs really has. I want to ask you this because sometimes when you come on the show, we play I'm a fan, you're a coach, right? As a fan, I have constantly said them getting another receiver doesn't necessarily mean they're super down on the receivers. There's a narrative here where people, man, they must not be happy with the receiver room if they went on it. I just think if you can find a place where you can incrementally improve somewhere and add something to the room that's not there, you go and do it. And I don't think it's necessarily a reflection that the room isn't where they want it to be.
Exactly. And like I said, I'm pretty happy I was happy with the receiver room coming out of the spring. And I think the coaching staff was relatively happy coming out of the spring. But when you get an opportunity to add another body type to your room and it's something that you need, you're going to take it. He's not going to take anything away. If we want to look at the plus minuses, we have a roster spot from Tommy McIntosh that needs to be filled right there. And so it's what the room needs. And the other guys, the Vinnie Anthonys, the Quincy Burroughs, they have the advantage that they've been here in the system for 2 springs. They have playing time, and they're going to have the head start. And the only reason why they're going to lose playing time is because Griffin's going to come in, he's going to do the work, and he's going to beat them. And if he goes in and he beats them, that's only a positive. And so you can be happy with your room, but still want to improve it. You should never be satisfied with the team. I mean, we always want to improve. It's like Tyree Walker. Did we need another running back? No. But are we happy that we got him? Yeah. He fits what we're trying to do, and he elevates the room as a whole. It's going to allow younger players to develop slower. It's going to, again, give a body that we don't have and that we sorely could have used last year. So I think it's only a positive.
Let me give you another example of this, and it's not exactly the same, but what did we do last year in the quarterback room? We went out and got Nick Evers. And then did we need another quarterback? Probably not, because you had Evers. You knew you were going to get more, but you still had Braden Locke. You still kept adding to the room, and he ended up being the guy, right? So you never know who's going to be the guy when you bring in multiple people. You bring in people with tools, different body sets, and you see how they work out. Speaking of transfers, we talked about this a little before the show. I want to kick this to you out. I have a thought on this as well. The Badgers have loaded up from the portal receiver, right? Pauling, you have Bryson Green, you have CJ Williams, Tyrell Henry, Griffin is a new one. Quincy Burroughs, like they have loaded up out of that group. We're not going to count Pauling because he's already kind of established himself as one of the best slot receivers in the Big Ten. We're not going to count Bryson, who I think carved out a pretty good role last year and is going to again this year. Out of that remaining group, Tyrell Henry, Joseph Griffin, CJ Williams, and Quincy Burroughs, who is going to have the best career at Wisconsin?
Oh, that's tough. Receivers at Wisconsin are always tough to grade because good for us is different other places. And receivers who dominate at Wisconsin go on to the NFL and do nothing. In terms of total package, I'd probably say Quincy Burroughs because he's got the combination of the size and the speed, but he's the most unproven. He's barely gotten on the field. He didn't come in with the accolades out of high school. CJ Williams would probably be the safer bet, but I think we saw last year he has a lot of flaws in his game that he needs to work on. Tyrell Henry is young. He's talented, but again, he hasn't played very much. A little bit smaller receiver. So for me, I guess the safe bet would be Quincy Burroughs. I think maybe the highest upside would probably be CJ because he should have the highest upside because he came in with the highest accolades coming in, the best skill set, so to speak. Who might end up getting the longest career in the NFL? It could be Tyrell Henry because he's a kick returner, and he could go in and win a punt return job in a camp, and he could be the next Alex Erickson, who has stuck around in the NFL for a decade because he can return kicks and play slot receiver every now and then. So it's an interesting one. I really would like to see now that Quincy it looks like is going to get a more substantial role this year, how that elevates his game. Because he's that vertical threat that we didn't really have last year. He spent a year learning what the offense means in terms of leverage, et cetera. So he could have a chance to break out this year if he can get on the field more. Sounds like Vinny Anthony is probably going to be the starter, but Quincy will be that super sub, kind of like CJ was trying to be last year. Vinny Anthony became at the end of the year. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. But I'll say safe bet Quincy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on Quincy. I think a player – I think it speaks incredible volume when a coaching staff leaves a program and they handpick guys that they want to bring with them, right? Like they had Quincy at Cincinnati. Some of these other guys are coming from Michigan State, coming from USC, coming from – they like the player, but they don't really – you don't know the player until you coach the player. And you've been in locker rooms, you've coached kids. I've coached kids. Like it's different coaching them than watching them work out or watching highlight film. So I think they see the things under the hood with Burroughs. I talked to Brady Collins. He loves him. I think he's the safe bet as well. We're on the same page there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, talk about which player needs to be talked about more in this receiver room. Then we're going to get into some superlatives and over-unders. Where is Coach on the Trech 39.5 catches over-under? We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the #1 source for all your professional networking. Find the right people. Find the right people. We talk about it right here. We're talking about recruiting. We're talking about transfers. It's all about talent acquisition. It's all about the right people. It's all about getting the right people in the door when you need to. That's what LinkedIn is here to do. The #1 professional tool in the world. You will find the right people for your job, for your company. As a hiring manager, it is the most important thing you can do. Don't bring in a bad hire. Every hire is so important. So don't waste your time. Bring in the right people with simple tools, screening tools. Right now, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Coach, let's get back into this. And again, I definitely want to give you an opportunity to talk about everything that you got going on so people can come find the really good work that you do.
Raid, obviously there we go. I'm unmuted. At the Dairy Raid, I've been putting out the spring kind of review of the position groups, along with the written pieces that go along with it on Badger Notes. Today I put out another video on Griffin. Watch some film with him talking about how he fits in the offense. So if you're into the nerdier side of football and the niche within the niche that is Badger football, I got a lot of good stuff for you.
Let's jump into player that is not getting talked about the most. I'll kick this one off. I think it's Vinny Anthony. I think Trech has been the talking point. I think people are talking about, is this the year Bryson Green and CJ Williams potentially take that step? Everyone's talking about Will Pauling, right, returning as one of the best slot receivers. I don't think anybody's really talking about Vinny Anthony, who's likely going to be a starter and play a really big role in this team as a vertical threat. You go back to his film in high school, just a big play after big play. I think he can stretch the field. Will Pauling has said that's like the second fastest dude in the receiver room. I think Vinny's the guy people aren't talking about enough.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, like how last season unfolded. You heard less and less of CJ Williams. You saw even Chimere Dike's snaps go down a little bit, and Vinny Anthony kind of snuck on the scene and just slowly chipped away at the reps at both the number 2 slot spot and at the wide receiver spot. He's that old school air raid flanker type that, can really push the ball vertical, has a pretty good sense of leverage. He's a good route runner. The only knock I guess I'd have on him, he's obviously a little undersized, a little thin, but he's got good burst off the line. And he's got pretty good hands for being a slightly smaller guy. So I think he's a nice contrast to the other side of the field. And I think it's coming in, and he earned the reps. He came in on, not to say under, less heralded than anybody else, but, when CJ comes in with the transfer accolades and the high school rankings, and then he slowly loses his playing time. And same with Chimere Dike, Mr. Badger receiving core for the last 3-4 years. And then he slowly kind of goes away because Vinny Anthony was there. It wasn't that Vinny Anthony went in spite of them. He earned the playing time. And you can always tell that with Coach Longo, is he plays guys he's comfortable with. And the fact that Vinny Anthony got so much playing time, and now we've getting into the spring, we heard his name a lot from the coaching staff. You might have heard more from Quincy Burroughs and Trech, et cetera, from the recaps of the media who was there. But you ask Kenny Guyton, who's the guys in his room, he always talked about Vinny Anthony. So that's a really good sign of where his role is going to be in the offense, because again, he brings that vertical threat that we didn't really have last year, or we didn't trust last year. I mean, I think we've had plenty of speed, but he's bringing kind of the total package of being able to catch the ball, run after the catch, and more importantly, get open. I think that was a big problem with CJ and with Chimere. They couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. So for a smaller guy like Vinny Anthony, that he can get off the line, that's a good sign.
What do you think about when you look at this receiver room? What is your biggest concern?
I think I want to see growth in understanding the offense and understanding what the coaching staff wants, and changing receiver coaches is going to be tough. But Kenny Guyton comes from an air raid offense. He has experience at Houston in the air raid. He knows what the offense is looking for. Last year, we just never seemed comfortable, and fully admit it. I mean, as much as I sing the praises of the offense, it can take time to learn. And we just didn't quite get that sense. So I want to see growth in route running, ability to get off of press coverage, the ability to make the defense have to play zone coverage. If we don't get that, then I'm worried that we don't quite have the athletes still, that if we have to play man-on-man ball across the field outside of Will Pauling and Trech, do we have guys who can be able to win battles off the line of scrimmage and get into the second level? Them picking up Joseph Griffin is signaling that, well, we're going to add a third guy to that list. At least we have a couple guys who can break press with athletic ability, and we got a third guy who can break it with physicality. So I think that's a positive sign that they're looking to fill that hole. And I think the room is unproven, but as long as they have grown from this point last year, we should be moving in the right direction.
Here's another question I had, and I told this before the show, man. When I know you're coming on, I'm sometimes like, man, I have this thing rattling around my brain. It's been there for a while, and I want to throw it to your way because you know ball. Does Van Dyke fit this receiver room better than Tanner Mordecai? Potentially. Or is that impossible to add?
I think so. I mean, he can. He has the arm talent that quarterback coaches love. He can make every NFL throw. He can just rip the ball over the field. And I think, at least with him, it's maybe not his game, it's his temperament and just the way he attacks the game. Like at times last year, Tanner seemed like he was hesitant, gun shy a little bit. Towards the end of the year, he didn't care. He started ripping it, and we saw the difference. I don't think Van Dyke has a care in the world. He just wants to rip it. That's a quarterback. Quarterbacks want to get out there and spin it, and he can certainly do that. Is he going to get himself in trouble with that kind of mentality? Sure, but he's also going to take shots on balls that he thinks he can fit in there, and no quarterback's going to throw a ball that he doesn't think he can fit in there. And we saw last year that Tanner at times got a little hesitant. Now, we have to remember that how much of Tanner's mistakes came because of bad snaps, came of bad routes run by the receivers.
That drop.
That Tanner doesn't hope, or that Tyler Van Dyke doesn't have to deal with this year. Hopefully, Jake Renfro is going to make a significant difference. He is the offensive MVP of this year if the offense works. But they have different mentalities. I think Tanner, if he had 4 years in the system and grew up at Wisconsin, maybe we're thinking differently. But for a 1-year rental, I think Tanner would be great because then he'll just rip it, and at least we're not wondering, well, what would happen if he threw the ball? He's going to throw it, and so that's going to change the outlook of the offense. It's going to change Phil Longo's play calling because he has to. There were times last year we never knew what Tanner was going to do. At least I think this year, Coach Longo, he knows what Van Dyke wants to do. And so through his play calling, through his play design, he can either limit that or exploit it. So I think that's what they're going to be pushing. I think they're definitely going to be pushing the ball downfield more. I think for sure. And, like it or lump it, that's what's going to happen. And
I think defensively too, that's going to impact the way teams prepare for us. There were times last year where you could see they knew we weren't going to push the ball down the field. Certain teams were really creeping up, making everything difficult because we couldn't, whether it was Mordecai, the snaps, whether it was some play at left tackle and right tackle at times, whether it was receivers dropping balls. It's a combination of all of it, but we weren't able to push the ball down the field. And defensive coordinators are smart, right? They're not idiots. They knew that and they saw that.
Well, and I think, skill position wise this year, we can have a lot more balance and be able to, if a defense can just sit there in man-to-man coverage the entire time and just dare you to out-athlete them. At Wisconsin, you're going to be in for a bad time because we don't have the athletes to just out-athlete everybody. Now we're starting to get some of those guys, but more importantly, we're starting to balance those guys. If Trech and Pauling are on the field at the same time at both slots, you can't just sit there in man-to-man coverage. Somebody's going to pop loose. And with, a deeper running back room that offers, better opportunities in the passing game from the running backs, it's going to force defenses to play more high-low ball than they did in the past. I think the way we saw LSU come out, that's why we're successful against LSU, because they had to play zone defense. They weren't comfortable with their DBs playing man-to-man, despite how many 5-stars they had in that room.
Wild.
So the fact that we're going to have more balance, better play from the receivers, better threats in the passing game from the running backs should help. It might not work, just like any offense every year. It's not a magic 1-year fix, but everyone's a year older, a year smarter, a year more comfortable. We've added some new bodies, so logic would dictate that the offense can take a little bit of a step forward this year.
Yeah, we're all here for that. All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back. Who is the most likely NFL guy in this room? And then we're going to grade the position and do a couple over-unders. That's coming up next with Coach Anderson. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show and a quick second to say thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Y'all are incredibly appreciated. And let's just keep building this community and let's keep going. All right, we're going to come back, Locked On Badgers. We got Coach Anderson here. One more quick question, then we're going to get over-unders and we're going to grade it. With every positional preview I've done, I've said, this is my favorite Badger at this position. So who's your favorite receiver, Badger receiver of all time?
Badger receiver of all time. Oh, boy.
I'll start so you can think about it if you need it. It's Lee Evans for me. Like he was doing his thing as I was like in my younger prime coming up as a Badger fan. Obviously, he had the 5-touchdown game against Michigan State, first-round pick, succeeded in the NFL to some degree. Like he did not wash out at all. Good receiver for the Bills. Just a dynamo. So for me, it's Lee Evans.
Yeah, I mean, I could date myself and say, touchdown Tony Simmons and Donald Hayes, that pair that we had back then. Nick Davis in the slot and the dynamic kick returner. He was always fun to watch. Chris Chambers.
Great player.
I mean, he was that first guy for me. He was that first guy. Like, we got a big receiver out of Ohio. And that was, just that body type. We got Lee Evans around the same time as well. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anybody, if I have to go really far back. I don't want to go Lee DeRamus and really, really age myself. But yeah, I'd say, touchdown Tony, Donald Hayes, getting 2 receivers drafted in the NFL in the same draft. I mean, as a Badger fan, you could never think that would happen.
You do it again, which leads into the next question.
Yeah.
Most likely receiver in this room to get drafted, and I'll say relatively high, like first, second, third round pick, somewhere in that day 1, day 2 range. Most likely.
Oh, that's tough because, I mean, talent. I guess the easy answer I could say is Trech, because he just has that special playmaking ability. But our slot receivers drafted in the top 3 rounds type of guy, I think he could have a fantastic NFL career. He's going to, as we can see how the NFL offenses are changing, slot receiver is a defined position. The number 3 receiver is a defined position. And, guys are making their career living in the slot, doing a lot of the stuff that our offense calls for our guys to do. He's going to be a kick returner, punt returner type guy. And he's got the frame to add at least a little bit more size than like Will Pauling. I think Will Pauling right now is showing what he's going to be. I think he could be the 2025 equivalent of Wayne Corbett, and just again do what he's doing in the offense now, being the guy, get tough yards from the slot. And I think he could fit there. The other guys, it's hard to say, because I want to see them on the field do something to earn the superlatives of how good they're going to be at the next level.
Well, and even Trech, to your point, we need to see him on the field as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're basing a lot of our opinions on Trech on what we heard he did in camp, the bowl game, and kind of, he played awesome in the bowl game, but a lot of the oh my gods happened because of one play. So yeah, I want to see him do more, because if he does more, the offense is gonna take off. So I don't want to go too crazy, because again, he is a redshirt freshman who has had injury issues in the past. So if we're just thinking straight up talent, I don't think anybody matches Trech. In terms of production, I don't know. I mean, Joseph Griffin, maybe, because he's 6'3", and he's already had 2 years of playing experience in a Power 4 conference. I think that most of those guys in the room could get an invite to at least to a rookie camp. So
I feel like your answer is actually hitting on a potential problem with this room, though. It's still a whole lot of unrealized potential. Yeah. Right? There's still, outside of Pauling, who I think we know who Pauling is, and it's what he is a extremely good slot receiver who's going to play in the NFL. But outside of Pauling, there's a whole lot of we think, right? We hope, and I think that's one of the potential concerns with this room is there's a lot of unrealized potential, and you and I both know potential at times does not become realized.
Yeah, and they had and it had to be, they had to make a from the ground rebuild of the room. And right now, the only one who's left over from the previous regime is Vinny Anthony and Chris Brooks, I guess.
Who's hurt?
Who's always hurt. So that's part of it. It's you need to rebuild, and they've been rebuilding. So now they need to produce. Now they've had 2 years in the system. Now they got what they want. It's young and unproven, but the advantage of being young and unproven is you kind of have that benefit of the doubt, and then also that carefree attitude. Well, we might as well just go for it. So I hope we see that. I hope we see a less hesitant offense and more of an offense that's willing to take a shot and willing to push the ball and build within that.
I don't think you bring in, so going back to tying it together, I don't think you bring in Tyler Van Dyke if you're not trying to do that, right? I think that's part of the whole rationale behind bringing in the big arm guy who's, like you said, he's going to let it fly for better and worse. So I do think we're going to see that. Really quickly, I want to ping a couple of these over-unders by you, and as always, I keep you longer than I'm supposed to. The Trech one. Justin and I have talked about this. Other people talked about this. We have a number of over-under receptions for Trech this year, 39.5. Where are you at?
I'll say over, just because I want to push this idea. I talked about it in my receiver breakdown. Will Pauling's not coming off the field unless he's tired or hurt. He is the starting slot receiver, no matter how good Trech is, because you're not going to put Will Pauling on the bench. Your offense gets worse when Will Pauling comes off the field. That being said, Trech is going to get a lot of playing time. I think we're not. I don't want it's. Let's not look at last year's number 2 slot receiver in Skylar Bell as any indication of what Trech's playing time is going to be. I think he's going to get all those reps. I think they're going to run a ton of 10 personnel with both of them on the field, and they're going to find ways to use him. I wouldn't be surprised if they find like a Deebo Samuels kind of role where he's in the slot and they put him in the backfield. They did that last year with Will Pauling, where they put him in the backfield and then they motion him out. So I think he's going to get on the field a lot. And I think the fact that him and Pauling are going to be on the field at the same time, defenses are going to kind of have to pick their poison. And in that case, they're going to go with the older guy. So they're going to and then go with where the offense has shown where it's going to go. So I think Will Pauling's numbers are going to go down in terms of total catches.
I do too.
But I think his yards after the catch, I think his total yards and his touchdowns are going to go up. And I think Trech is going to get a lot. He's going to get a lot of free receptions. He's going to be the bubbles. He's going to be a bubble screen guy. He's going to be the jet sweep guy. And those jet sweeps counts as passes because the quarterbacks flick it out in front of them. They don't hand it off anymore. Stay screens. And then all your normal slot receiver of your curls and your crosses, etc. So I think he's going to get a lot more opportunities than our slots did last year. So I'll say over, just because I think that's the direction the offense is going. But it's as part of the offense as a whole growing. I think Trech will take receptions away from the running backs and from the tight ends, and it'll be a little more balanced amongst the receivers than what we saw last year, hopefully at least.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said there. I also have Pauling's numbers, his catches going down, but I don't think the impact is diminished. I think he's going to live in the defensive coordinator's brains for a couple of weeks, right? Until maybe if Trech starts emerging, but for a while it's going to be Pauling, and he's going to be. That's
going to be the balance. It's when you have, and that was always a fixture of the air raid offense. Is it's not designed to have a guy. It's going to be, all right, you have to cover 5 guys. I'm going to find the one that you can. And you look back at Mike Leach, he's had unsung hero type guys who get 1 million catches at all 5 positions in the offense. And that's what I'm expecting to see here is like, all right, if you're going to rotate your defense to Will Pauling, you put Trech on the other side. It's like, I dare you. Because it's going to open up so much. That's why they both need to be on the field at the same time as much as possible in the slots. I know someone was commenting with me today on Twitter, put Trech on the outside. He's not a wide receiver. He's a slot receiver. And, that's where the balance comes in on the field at the same time.
All right, let's end here. Give me a grade on this receiver room. A to F. Where are you at on how strong this receiver room is for this year?
Do I want to give an incomplete grade?
No, you can
I can't give it. No. I'd say B needs to show their work.
B with upside though, right? Like
B with upside. Yeah, and because I think that the talent's there. I think the mix of the body types is there. They're all a year older, a year more experienced, a year stronger, a year faster, and they have a quarterback who's going to be a little more willing to trust them and just rip it. So add all those things together and they should elevate. Baseline based on where they were at this point last year and where they are now. Let's start at a B. Maybe goes down from there. Hopefully not, but it could push up to an A- if we hit on all cylinders. But yeah, solid B.
I think so too. I'm right in that range too. And I think that's a really fair grade I think at the end of the year, you could look back and some of these things we've talked about, maybe Vinny Anthony does become kind of that deep vertical threat and Trech is who we think he is. And Pauling continues to build on last year. Suddenly you have the pieces and Griffin coming in as that 6'3" guy, you have the pieces that you can start saying, this is really more of like a B+ A- room potentially. I still think you're missing that. If you're an A+ room at the college level, you have a first or second round pick on the outside somewhere. Yeah. I think we're still missing that, at least for this year. But
it's going to be a while until we can attract those type of guys to Madison. There are off the field concerns that come with that to get those type of receivers especially in this day and age. So it's going to have to be with the guys you can develop and the under the radar type guys for now. The talent level's going up, the recruiting department's changing, but I mean, we've never gotten those types here. So we've got to start pushing for it because I mean, just compete with the big guys. We have to compete with the big guys. We have to recruit like them. Yep. And at least we're starting there now.
It feels like the last guy we got with that recruiting prototype was like Craig Appleton. And we all know what happened with Craig Appleton. That did not work out well, but he at least had that type of prototype. Anyway, he is Coach Anderson. I already kept you 5 minutes longer, but definitely go check out his work over at the Dairy Raid over at Badger Knows. He has a YouTube channel. If you're familiar with this channel, you're certainly familiar with the quality work he does. So go check him out. Coach, as always, we are smarter because you're here. Thank you for jumping on.
Always a pleasure.
On Wisconsin, and we'll talk tomorrow.